Hey guys, how you doing? I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. It is a beautiful day here. It is warm and sunny outside. I should be out there, but I'm here in my basement recording this video for you. Patch 1.13. I've done a couple of videos on it, and the big news, of course, was the nerfing of HE, the nerfing of SPGs. That was the big news and what everyone has talked about. But there's been a couple of changes that kind of went in under the radar, and I thought I'd do a video to explain some of the buffs, which some of you may not be aware of. They've been buffing some tanks, and that kind of snuck in under the radar because we were all consumed with this HE rework and SPG nerf. So some tanks have been buffed in 1.13. Let's have a look at that. Vehicle rebalancing continues. We are continuing to work on rebalancing popular premium tanks and improving their combat effectiveness. In update 1.121, we rebalanced 4 Tier 8 vehicles, if you recall. This time they're rebalancing 3 light tanks of different nations and will receive their own improvements. We're updating their combat parameters, enhancing their strengths to emphasize their gameplay. Well, that's good. At the same time, the next several premium tanks that need to be rebalanced have already been headed to a dedicated super test. So they're buffing everything, which is kind of understandable because the game is power creeping its way into oblivion, right? It's always a faster, stronger, harder, jump higher, faster than a speedy bullet, more powerful than a locomotive. Tanks have to be faster, they have to do more, and it's a constant power creep, and it's unfortunate, but that it's a leapfrog all the time. You introduce new overpowered lines and new overpowered tanks, and some of the old ones aren't so good, so then they buff the old ones, and we're gonna power creep ourselves into 1-minute games eventually. But let's just go through this. Stay tuned to find more about the improvements coming forward. But what did they improve? The M41D. A modernized version of the American Bulldog. It's a Chinese Tier 8 light tank, premium tank. Let's find it here. Where is it? It is this one. They buffed this tank right here. They gave it more view range, 20 meters more view range. So instead of 390, 410. My, a light tank that has view range. That's interesting. And they made it a little faster. They buffed the view range and made it a little faster. Well, you're a Tier 8 light tank. You're going to get in Tier 9 and 10 games. In those Tier 9 and 10 games, there's probably going to be an EBR 90 and an EBR 105. You're useless. I wouldn't recommend this tank anyway. It's a hunk of garbage, even if it has 20 more millimeters of view range. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, the Senlak, my favorite tank, also received an increased view range from 400 to 400. Let's find the Senlak. Where is it? The Sandlock, Tier 8 British premium light tank. Increased the view range by 10, so now it has the same view range as the, which is weird because it has a different playstyle than this one. This is more of an active little light tank with a really laser accurate gun, 68 kilometers of speed. This one is more of a stealthy, you could equip this with binocs and be a passive spotter. The gun is not as good, but yeah, so now it has the same view. It doesn't have more view range. 410 meter view range, and they've made the gun more accurate, but it's still 0.35 dispersion at 100 meters. Can you imagine? They decreased that 0.03. You used to be able to not hit anything. Now you still won't be able to hit much. Again, it's a Tier 8 light tank. You're going to be in games. Tier 9 and 10 games that have Tier 9 and 10 light tanks. So my whole philosophy on light tanks is they've been destroyed by EBRs. You know my opinion on that. And especially when you're playing a Tier 8 one and you get in a Tier 10 game with an EBR 105 on your team, who spots everyone. And you can't outrun him. You can't do more than him. And if the enemy team has one, and you get detected, you're dead. Okay. Anyways, that one's been buffed. The T92, the American little Tier 8 light tank. This little guy. What did they do to this one? I think it already had pretty good view range. They increased the standard shell penetration by 14 to 189 millimeters, which is still low. You still will have trouble penning almost anyone. But the special shell penetration has gone to 230 from 210. This tank, you know, is a very mobile little light tank. It's fun, it's fast, it's sneaky. It has a very laser accurate gun with a very fast aim time. But it suffered from not being able to pen anything, especially if you're in a tier 10 game. But all three of these tanks, okay, they've received slight buffs to keep up with the power creep. My phone just rang. To keep up with the power creep, but I wouldn't recommend any of them because there's tier 9 and 10 EBRs in the game. All right, what's the last one here? The ISU 130 Russian. Russia. This one, what did they do to this one? Oh! I have fun making these videos, guys. I have fun. Look at this. This is funny. Come on. Isn't this funny? You got to laugh, right? What's the buff to the American or the Chinese? To, you know, view range and a little speed. The Senlak, little view range. A little bit of dispersion. The T92, a little bit more pen. Russia, we have long list. We have long list of buffs. We do not have enough space. There's more buffs on page 2. Okay, they increased the horsepower, so it's a little, it responds better. The shell velocity has been increased, so you'll have, it'll be easier to hit things. HE shell velocity has increased a lot. Shell penetration has increased 25 to 212. Standard shell, yeah, pen has been increased on both. Gun traverse limits, 10 and 10. That's pretty good because it was very awkward because the gun traversed, it didn't have much of an angle, so you were constantly moving. Now it's 10 and 10, which is good. And ammunition, you get more shells, so you can do more damage. Because you have to shoot more HE now. We nerfed HE, so now you can load more HE. ISU 130. Okay, so there's been some buffs. There's been some buffs. There's also been other buffs, guys. There's been other buffs to the reward tanks. These tanks have been buffed. Let's go through those. Here we go. Let's see if we could start at the M60. The M60, which was already a very good tank, laser accurate gun with almost no aim time, beautiful gun handling, kind of like a patent but squishy, soft. Well, what did they do? The M60 received a stronger turret, enhanced hull and turret frontal armor. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the 3D model, but this thing did lack armor, and now they've given it more armor. So this was my top choice as a reward tank for bonds. If you save enough bonds, this is like my #1 choice of tier 10 reward tanks you can buy for bonds. Beautiful tank. All right. The 121B. What happens to the other way? Let's go to the 121B. Is it over here? 121B. What did they do to that? They increased the speed. 5 kilometers per hour forwards and 5 kilometers per hour in reverse. The gun reload time, they've decreased the reload time. So higher DPM, higher speed. It's going to be more of a speedy little bugger. All right, a little power creep for the 121B. And it was a little bit sluggish before that. All right, what else did they buff? They buffed, is this the Ripper pattern? No, what is this? Oh, the tier 7 T23E3. Not a lot of you have this, so it's probably not big news. But gun dispersion during movement and hull traverse, a soft stat has been a little bit better gun handling when you're moving or when you're traversing your hull. So just a little bit of a buff there as a soft stat. Yeah, big deal. The Kreislavsky. It's Russian, so it has more buffs. Top speed is increased 10. That's actually pretty good. This was kind of like a KV4 with a Mickey Mouse turret. I played it and I thought, why would I want to play a KV4 with a Mickey Mouse turret? Yeah, so they made it a little bit faster so it can maneuver well. It did drive like a boat. Okay. They increased the engine power, 150 horsepower. So not only is it going to have a higher top speed, it's going to accelerate faster. So you're probably going to be able to change your angle and spin like a top in this thing now. Gun dispersion during movement and hull traverse, minus 38%. Wow, so they've really buffed the accuracy when you're moving or when your turret's moving. And they've given you more hit points. And enhanced turret armor. It's Russian. It's long list of buffs. Why do the Russian tanks get long lists of buffs? And the regular tanks get, you have another 10 meters of view range. Go spot the EBRs. If you have the Russian ones, you get a long list. If you have the T92, hey, you've got 10 more meters of view range. Go out there and spot that EBR 105 for us. Ping, ping, ping. And we're going to have fun in this video. Okay. Oh, the object. The object IS-5. Basically, object 730. The IS-5, which had horrible gun handling and was it just wasn't very good. What did they do to that? Gun dispersion during movement and hull traverse, down 17%. So not as much of a buff, but a buff to the soft stats on gun dispersion during movement and hull traverse. Oh, gun dispersion during rotation is a huge buff. So they've buffed all three soft stats. There's a penalty if you shoot while your hull is traversing. There's a penalty if you shoot while your turret is traversing. And there's a penalty if you shoot while you're moving. They've buffed all three of those. The penalty for turret shooting while the turret is rotating has been really buffed quite a bit. So when you're stationary, you're not moving your hull, and you're aiming at a target, and you're just moving your turret. You know, when you're trying to lead the shot, this thing, it bloomed a lot, and it really trolled you. They've really buffed that. That's the most important one, and they've buffed that 38%. That's a huge buff. So hopefully the gun is going to be more reliable, because it was really a troll gun. But this gun depression angle, -7, a 2% increase to gun. A Russian tank with -7 degrees of gun depression. On this tank, with this upper hull, one of the weaknesses of this tank is when you got to a ridgeline, you exposed your lower plate because you didn't have gun depression, right? You couldn't really play a ridgeline and just show your turret and your upper hull, which are very, very powerful. But with -7 degrees of gun depression, this may make the IS-5 a definite option. I reviewed all these tanks on Bond reward tanks. You can check my playlist of Bond tank reward Bond tanks reviews. What did I call it? I don't know. I'll post the link up there. I'll post a link of my reviews. I may have to relook at this one because this is a huge buff. The Russian tanks have received huge buffs. The other ones not so much. There's one more though. The Chieftain T95, not the tier 10, the original Chieftain, the tier 8. This is a reward tank, and this looks like it has some significant buffs too. 100 engine power, 100 horsepower, gun dispersion during movement and hull traverse, -22%, and it already had a fairly decent gun dispersion during turret rotation, -20. This is going to have more of a Carnarvon Action X type pinpoint accuracy gun. That's a very good buff. View range has been increased 20 meters. That's a good buff. And gun reload time is down. Okay, a significant buff to the Chieftain T95. Wow. Interesting. Okay, so some of those changes went kind of under the radar because the big talk obviously is the HE nerf and the SPG nerf. I just wanted to show you those. If you meet some of these on the battlefield, right? If you come up against a T92 now, if you're driving your EBR 105, 100 kilometers an hour on Camp-in-a-Bushka map, and you're going to spot everyone, beware. The T92 Oh, he doesn't have any more view range. Don't worry about the T92. You can still shit all over him. But if you see a Senlak, beware. The Senlak has 10 meters more view range, and he may dominate on the battlefield now. My advice, okay, I always like to give you my no bullshit advice at the end of the videos, is these light tanks, in all seriousness now, these three light tanks, the T92, the Senlak, if you like light tanks, sure, but they're tier 8 premium light tanks, they're shit. They're going to be shit on by the matchmaker. You're going to be in tier 9 and 10 games a lot, and you know, what do you do when you're in one of these and you find yourself one-on-one versus a T54 lightweight? You die. He rams you for 500. You bounce, he kills you. What are you going to do when you're in a Senlak and you're headed towards the bush because you want to get in there and engage your binocs, and 15 seconds into the game, you're halfway to the bush, and zoom! One of those, an EBR 105 comes... The EBR 105 zooms by, and you're lit, and you're a dead Senlak. So these three light tanks, the buffs, it doesn't matter. Just forget about them. This one might be a little bit better. As you can see, it has a few more buffs. And then on these reward tanks, the Chieftain looks like it's been buffed quite a bit. I don't know how a regular player would get one of these, but what tickles my fancy on this one is the IS-5. Perhaps the IS-5 is going to be more defender-like now with this, especially the gun depression. This is huge, right? A little number, but it's huge. -7 degrees as opposed to -5 degrees. This is going to play completely different on some of the maps that have ridge lines. So this one is worth looking at again, and this one may be worth looking at again because it's faster. It has more horsepower, so it moves faster. The gun handles better. It has more HP and enhanced turret armor. I'm not sure what enhanced turret armor means, but I always thought, well, this Mickey Mouse turret is useless. If the turret's quite strong now, this one might be quite fun too. So once again, Russian tanks get good buff. Chieftain gets good buff. Light tanks, who cares? Who cares? Stay away from the tier 8 lights. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one.